Hello, everyone. I'm just seeing in the chat room there, we saw behind the curtain of The Wizard of Oz. Indeed, you did.
Okay,
let's clear that shot.
Oh, there we go. Music. Hi, everyone. How you going? Oz by Drone. How you going, number one?
Hey, Johnny, I'm doing good.
That's good. As you can see, I am mobile again.
Yeah.
I have a self-drive car here. Actually, he's doing pretty good. So it's the autopilot called Jake. And we're down in sunny Melbourne.
You realise when you talk about that, an autopilot called Jake, our American viewers probably believe you because you're sitting on that side of the car.
That's right, exactly right. No hands, Mum. I am. We're actually on our way back to Moorabbin Airport, where I've been flying the last couple of days and having a great time. So we're going to move from the car shortly into a Piper Chieftain Navajo. And that'll be fun too. I'll show you around that. This show will get a look around a couple of really great aircraft in the hangar. So that'll be really good fun, part of the show. But we've got lots of good things on today. I know Jeff Sills is going to be joining us. Always great to have him. Puts a lot of work into the show. So great to have him on. And I know he just changed hats. And I'm going to ask him later to put on the other hat that he's got in the background there. That's the one I really like. That's a great hat. So wait, we're gonna get a vote on the Jeff Sills hat later on. But anyway, what are we in with, mate?
Is it a propeller head hat or something like that?
No, this is far more sophisticated than that. Yeah, it's very good. Yeah. So anyway, let's get into it. It's a big week in the news. Lots of stuff happening with DJI. Lots of stuff happening over here in the industry and abroad. So we've got to get right through it all. And we should get into it.
Okay, before we do get into it, I want to quickly talk about something that's going to help our show a lot. Finding and selecting guests has been a challenge for a while, and I'm going to put a link. I'm just going to type it into the chat. ozbydrone.gregkuhnert.com. So if you guys go to ozbydrone.gregkuhnert.com, type that in, register yourself as a user, and then type in some details, add a guest of who you want to see on the show. So it's probably not appropriate to put, Donald Trump or, I don't know, Malcolm Turnbull or...
Nah, I don't want to see him anyway. That's all right. Let's have some more FPV guys. Let's have some flyers. And also, if you'd love to be a guest, maybe we can have our listeners come on too that are doing interesting things and have a guest. So why not? Let's open it up.
You can absolutely put yourself in if you'd like to be a guest on the show. And this will help me a lot because from time to time, at the last minute, a guest has to cancel for whatever reason. We were planning on having Coldflake, the author of No Limit Drones, in today, but he had to cancel yesterday. So he'll be in next week, and that's going to be a really special show because...
It's going to be great.
Yeah, Coldflake is giving away and donating some licenses to No Limit Drones, so... stick around for that. Speaking of which, today we're also going to I forgot to set something up. I'll do that next week. The giveaway for the handheld stick for your Osmo Pocket, I'll try and give that away. We'll see how we go.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get into it. Number one, starting with the news. And I'm so disorganized today, but that's all right.
Into it.
I am. Let's get into the news. So right up the top today, we've got a story where when a forest fire is starting, it's vital for firefighting crews to know what it is that they're up against. A new Spanish project is helping to make that happen, utilizing an autonomous intel gathering drone. When the project was created, they had a system which incorporates a network of communication towers. Each tower is equipped with a thermal camera and a drone that is stored within an integrated little mini hangar inside that tower. The tower then detects the thermal signature of forest fires, which are beginning within a 15-kilometre radius of itself. Now, this is really cool. This is a mobile phone company who's basically saying our cell towers are going to have a drone. They're also going to have thermal cameras pointing around and looking for fires within a 15-kilometre radius, and then the drones auto-launch and go and get intel for firefighters. Really good story.
Absolutely wonderful idea. You know, I've seen this technology that we're starting to think about this now, even to the point where in city cranes, like having on top of a crane, having a 30 zoom camera, of course, being able to use AI with the camera, manage traffic, do all sorts of stuff. And we're also doing photogrammetry from cell towers, and of course a communications company that's got so much infrastructure with towers. Why not? Why did they build a tower without a camera on it anyway? Of course, there are always going to be issues around that. But now, of course, having a drone, if you like, a drone launching pad on top of cellular towers where they can operate from, really, really clever idea. We're going to see a heap of this sort of stuff coming in. Now, I'd want to say straight away, because we're still at the very early stages of autonomous aircraft that use AI, fly themselves, do their own job. And I've always thought, you know, drone, we're very much a group of pilots, and you know, whereas we're interested, you know, we'll lots of flying work in the for a while. As it's right on the doorstep.
Yeah, and it's interesting to have a look at that. I think there's definitely a drone being able to. Everyone's saying buffering, yeah, we'll upload a clean copy later. Anyway, getting on to our second story today. So the title there I've got is Sighting or Advertising. So operations on one runway at Singapore Airport was shut down intermittently over 10 hours after an unauthorised drone was spotted, leading to 36 flight delays and a diversion. However, I noticed something very unusual on a government departmental Facebook page where the Singapore government announced a strike force. This photo contains, an illustration of a particular counter-UAS vendor solution on it. Is it convenient that this photo was ready for publication on use at the same day as this thing happened? I wonder who was piloting that drone.
Oh, well, it's obviously a staged shot. You know, you're not sitting there behind. That's actually put into the shot. It's done. And, you know, now we've got file footage of, you know, that news companies use of rogue drones. And you can see, it doesn't matter what the poor old DJI again, whenever the news needs, rogue drone did this, there you see the Phantom 4.
But don't forget, this is not a media file shot. This is the government's Facebook page where they happen to have the file footage ready to put up there.
Absolutely, but Google it. You can grab these kind of shots anywhere, of course, of someone holding.
But that is the Singapore military, and I read up on that photo, and apparently they had done testing with this particular vendor only a short while before. Now, is it coincidence? Is it not coincidence? We can speculate, but I think it's interesting timing. I'll just say that much.
It is interesting timing. Look, we often use the beat up, and the best way for the government to educate people about it is to have these sort of news stories where we remind everybody, don't fly around airports, and this is why. And I suppose the bigger the deal, you know, like a Gatwick. Imagine owning a drone in Gatwick in the suburb, you know, and people would be saying, well, was that you the other day? I mean, everybody would be on edge about where they fly in that area. And so they should be not, you know where you're flying.
Yeah.
But absolutely. Leave that one alone. It could be anything. Really.
It could be coincidence, but I just thought it was too much of a coincidence. But that's me being, speculating.
Yeah. Well, we are these days. Good.
So registration, it took an American citizen working for DJI, a Chinese company, to say what many have been thinking.
On what we need to do to improve, if necessary, the current regulatory system.
Sure. I'll focus right on that. And really, we have the privilege of seeing these regulatory frameworks emerge worldwide, and I think the UK is really on the right track in terms of the most important aspect, which is to provide access to the technology. We see drone technology already saving lives, already improving the economics of doing your job, and also creating art and a lot of fun. What's of concern, though, with the framework here, and I think, as alluded to in the early session and just now, is the proposed cost for registration. So although registration and knowledge testing, we believe, and as we've set out in our recent Elevating Safety white paper, these are core fundamental aspects of a responsible framework for regulation of all those good uses, but there's a lot of risk if you don't do it right. And a core aspect of registration, particularly on the task force that I worked on 3 years ago in implementing the very first model for registration around the world, that was the FAA Registration Task Force, was to keep it free or as low cost as possible, because we really need to encourage voluntary compliance. This is technology that's out there and
The
it's
worry is that
widespread.
if it's put out of reach, then people will just avoid it.
Exactly.
So there you go. If it's not voluntary or low cost, people will avoid it. What a shocking revelation. You're muting yourself, John, or have I got you muted?
You've got
there
me
we go.
muted.
There we go.
Yeah, we know this to be true, and most smart business people know that if you make something too expensive and it's got to be a registration. I used to laugh at TV licenses. They're gonna bring in TV licenses. How's that going to work?
It works so well. It works so well in the UK. But just on looking at this with drones, right? What about Australia? So CASA has previously advised that their proposed registration price per drone for commercial operators is likely to be between $100 to $160 per drone.
They're going to charge that because they know that we have to pay it. Commercial operators have to have their aircraft serial numbers logged with them anyway. All of our aircraft serial numbers are logged with CASA already. We're paying them, anything up from $3,000-4,000 to get started with a REOC. To have all that information. So they've already got it. We are going to be subsidising the recreational market and the policing and licensing and registration of that. Not really fair. But here's
here's an interesting point, John. I did some searching to find the price to register a motor vehicle as a comparison, and I picked the lightest weight class for a car. In New South Wales, it costs $215 for a personal use vehicle per year to register it in New South Wales. Now, granted, it is more for business, but let's go even further. What about a trailer or caravan for
motorbike.
business use for a caravan? The lightest weight costs $104. It's cheaper to register a caravan, which you're going to put on the road, and you're paying for that road infrastructure. It's more expensive to register a drone. It's crazy.
It's crazy. The scale, the pricing is completely out of scale. These days, and we've watched the way our regulator has been chasing money. So if you want to do a renewal and so forth, you pay for a stamp. This is what we're basically doing these days. We're actually now not even filling a form out. We go online, enter all your details. The robotic form says, you got all the details there. You might be just renewing something. It's just, again, or, we're looking at ASIC cards at the moment. What are we paying, Jake? $200 a year? $290 to renew a security card. And it's a two-year valid thing. It's a rubber stamp. And it's just these sort of costs people are going to work around. They're not going to pay them if they can get any way of getting around it. So, yeah,
and you're exactly right.
Like,
while we said commercial operators have got to do it, right? How is this going to support commercial operators? Because I think there's going to be a lot of dodgy commercial operators who are going to do stuff and they're not going to get caught.
Absolutely. Well, I know, talking last year at the conference, at the RPAS conference in Australia, we were down and doing some at Avalon Air Show as well. Everybody feels $5 or $10. Everybody. Just if you've got an aircraft with props on it and you're going to fly it and it's got a GPS, perhaps that might be a limiting thing. That's a nice way to sort of, at the start anyway, all GPS drones, capable drones, $10. And everyone would pay it. I don't know that $10 a year is going to be very popular, but and whether people are going to register once and then not register, what the black market, what the used market's going to be like, we just don't know. And I don't think the regulator knows what it's going to look like anyway either. There are fairly heavy penalties for not registering your car and carrier. They will be able to police about that.
Yeah, okay. Now, the next one, some of this footage, I don't know if you just get rid of that. That was my bad. Now, unfortunately, John is still hearing the audio. Nothing I can do about that. Sorry, John. But for everyone else's benefit, so this is something that's happened in Hong Kong. We've got the protests happening in Hong Kong. Now, there's so many aspects and elements to this footage. Number one, definitely flying beyond line of sight of the aircraft. Number 2, flying over people. Number 3, safety and all of those kind of things. Number 4, registration. How would that play into this if every aircraft was registered and sending out its serial number? But then again, I ask myself, what is some of the real motivation for registration? And in different parts of the world, there are people claiming that there are non-safety and non-technical reasons for registration as well. And I just thought I'd throw it out there, government control, and saying, hey, we don't want people filming protests. We don't want people with an eye in the sky above some of these events. I wonder if that's part of it as well. I just thought I'd throw it out there.
Yeah, look, it's hard to say. I mean, looking at this footage, everyone's sort of thinking the same thing. It looks pretty cool. Nothing happened. It is definitely, flying over crowds of people, and we're doing FPV as well. So, it's not a good look that way. If someone, if someone had been hurt, right, it'd be a completely different story. But by the same token, different story.
Yeah. By the same token, for a serious political incident like this as well, being able to actually capture what's happening, there's no other way that this is shown and illustrated in the
fact that there's a lot of fairly, perhaps there needs to be circumstances. I mean, why didn't they have an SUAS up looking down? Well, you have, and I think it's probably most valid. So, look, I suppose there's a lot to talk about in looking at footage like that, whether you're going to talk about the legality. That's a whole nother issue of it. No one needs to really debate that. We know what it is, and there are some safety aspects there that need talking about. But in terms of, the footage itself, obviously black sheep, that's going to go viral. You've got a commercial aspect of promoting a company or a group, if you like, through that sort of special footage as well. Everyone's going to be talking about it. So lots of things. I think, coming back down to the political debate of the country, what's going on itself, and I think that's where people should really focus their discussion, on the actual human rights issues that are being discussed more than anything else.
Let me ask one question, John. Would you support some kind of a regulatory exemption for newsworthy flying over people with a certain set of circumstances? It's a tough question, because on one hand, it can be so open and so abused. But on the other hand, if there isn't something allowing that kind of an exemption, people are not going to see events like that one unless people are doing the wrong thing anyway,
Yeah, well, here's the difficult part. If you want to drill down into the problem, if in that case you look at, there are actually prescribed fines and for flying over people. Now, here's the deal. If CASA can fine you a maximum of $9,000 for that here, I'll ask the question, what do you think that footage is worth? And it's a lot more than $9,000. Yeah. And so you're going to reach a point where if there's jail time involved, and let's face it, the paparazzi, other people in this industry, there are people that do take risks, and the stakes are quite high in terms of getting footage and getting a news story, because there's commercial aspects of the news story, as we said. And now if the regulators are going to do it, they're not going to share their footage. My guess is there are street cameras all over the place there. It'd be foolish to think there wasn't CCTV footage everywhere of where that was. And there's lots and lots of footage. And law enforcement have had that covered for a while. There's nothing new about that. The fact that you can fly a small drone over it and have your own footage and stream it and control the footage is a completely different matter. Are you going to stand up in court if you get caught and you shared the footage? Is it going to be a WikiLeaks type of accusation that you're sharing the footage? Is it going to be I was flying where I shouldn't be around people type of who is going to hold the the club here and decide whether they're going to lock you up and throw away the keys? Get me say though that we are still us, in terms of the drone builders and the people that are in this hobby, we're still so far ahead of all of them at this stage. I think that's what frightens them most. I can sit together an afternoon. I can build an aircraft that we could take that footage, and you will not be able to track it. You'll not be able to see where it was, and you won't be able to tell where I need to hide ourselves. At the moment, we've always had it, and they're chasing us. That's another subtopic. If you want to speak the truth and talk the truth, that's what it is. We actually have the, and I think that's probably what everyone's a bit nervous about.
So our next story, swarm. Drone swarms can be compared to wolf packs hunting and neutralizing suicide drones. They track their enemy, unmanned aerial systems, with their onboard radar, and then feed the targeting information to other weapon systems, or just crash themselves into the threat and detonate their warhead. $15,000 aerial vehicles are tube launched and can fly from ships, cars, and even other aircraft. Now, by itself, I see, John, you're moving around there. I'll just continue and go to the next story while you reposition. The interesting bit about this is that we've also had a UK inquiry looking at drones and discussing the possibility of sub 250-gram drones being controlled as a swarm. I'm just going to mute John for a little while there. If I can find him. There we go. So, they're looking at sub 250-gram drones, and can they be used as a swarm and used as a weapon? And then they were talking about, so what about the weight of that, and how are they going to work together and all of that kind of stuff? So let's play the clip.
They don't necessarily need to carry something, as has already been mentioned by Dr. Lewis. It could actually be a swarm of them causing...
I believe anything with malicious intentions probably isn't going to carry any transponding technology at all.
Okay.
It was a very, very short clip, but get that message again. Anyone with malicious intent is not going to put something that's going to say, here I am coming out from the drone. It's pretty obvious when you think about it, and we've been saying that for a long time. So the whole drone registration, drone ID, and all of that kind of stuff, is it really something that we need to push as far as it has been pushed? Or maybe we have to look at it again from a different angle. And speaking of a different angle, let's have a look at that angle. What did I see in front of us there, John?
Oh, there you go. Here we go. Well, we are in the beautiful Piper Navajo Chieftain. I'll swap you around the other way. This is the aircraft that I was flying yesterday. Let me flick the electrics on for you, and it'll quickly light up the... Here we go. This is a very, very nicely kitted out PA-31. And it's so it got twin 430 GPSs and weather radar and so forth.
And since we've got another geek here, we've got Jeff as a geek in the background. I'm just going to bring his mic hot as well in case he wants to drool over what you're showing.
There you go. We've got the Aspen electronic glass cockpit here. So, yesterday I came down to Melbourne, and this is a company that I'm going to be doing some flying for, and so I did a check to line with their chief pilot and then a sim session, and also the 3 night circuits last night. It's an absolutely beautiful looking aeroplane. You can see out the right there. It's a twin engine, very nice buffalo leather seats in the back. It'll carry 10 people. And it's configured for 8 at the moment in club. Hi, Jeff. How you going, mate? And,
not too bad.
Here we go. I'll take you out the left side. You can see a couple of Cirrus aircraft out there, but we are in a hangar in Moorabbin Airport in Melbourne, Australia. There we go.
I got a chance to fly a Mooney myself and loved it. And of course, I spent probably about 25 years of my life flying simulators. So
yeah, good.
Love aircraft, love planes, and I could probably identify just about every single gauge on there.
Yeah, look, Greg has been racking up some hours in the sim himself lately, being a new avid in the simulator. funny thing about the sim, where we did our training yesterday, we had a motion simulator. I've flown plenty of desktop simulators, of course, as we all enjoy. It's really interesting. And this was this unit of aviation's worth for 400 grand or so. So interestingly, that the technology motors with a couple of camshafts appeared to be needs 400. But of course, the idea, interesting, for those of the flight sim people that love the flight sim, you can take your desktop, provided you can build it in a box that you can sit in, and put it on a floor plate. The underside, in terms of the motion, doesn't have to be that complicated. We had to reset it a couple of times, but there's a bit of work in it. And my dad's had a cockpit with all of the, people. If you go, it makes it a very different experience. And so I had to do then into an ILS at Essendon. So I overshot the ILS and then did an NDB at Moorabbin and then a GNS approach. So I had 3 approaches in a row. The instructor gave me an engine failure off the ILS overshoot, which is always fun. But anyway, we got signed off in the end. But the things that and then of course we flew this aircraft for a couple of hours, and the things that you can do in the sim that you just don't need to do in an aircraft and while you're actually flying. And of course, what I like is the ability to pause, so in the simulator, you can say, hang on a second, let's have a look at where you are, look at the energy in the airplane, what the configuration is, and, what are we thinking about next? And the whole level of instruction, the purpose of teaching you something and testing you in a simulator, the pause button is wonderful, because when you get down after flying and you're going to do a debrief, you're wrapped around a cup of coffee, and if you did all right, we got back, we walked away from it, in the simulator.
Well, I remember when I got into flight simulators, I remember that I was always fascinated by the people that would make flight simulators, out of like real aircraft. So they would go to a salvage yard, they'd buy a Cessna, or they'd buy, one guy bought a 737 and, cut the nose off, brought it to his house, put it in his garage. But the creativity of some of the things, there was one guy that had
Jeff, speaking of creativity,
now what, Greg? How was that?
Sorry, I had.
This is like this is the interrupter. On.
Well, so I saw a guy build a flight simulator out of a sports car. I mean, he sealed off all the windows, he tore out the dashboard, and took out the steering column and basically set the dashboard up as the flight simulator. And he could sit there in his car and put the computer screens up where the glass used to be.
Yeah.
And he made a beautiful simulator. So also, I was going to ask you a question. Have you heard recently that the Microsoft Flight Simulator team is back and they're releasing a new version?
I have actually heard that the other day, and I think the talk was in town, that it is still a very popular format, and the Microsoft was going to go to a next level, a new version coming out. X-Plane has been a little bit on top lately. I know I've seen the latest X-Plane visuals. Of course, the photorealistic versions of flight sim now are what we're enjoying. And I love the story that the sports cars and the 737 in the cockpit. So I've lived with this because my father has the box. And what's really funny is that he will, when it started years ago, one night, he was logging up hours. He was a member of a virtual airline. He was working up his hours, getting on the captaincy. So anyway, the alarm goes off at 2:30 in the morning. And my mother says to my father, George, what's going on? It's 2:30 in the morning. He says, I'll be back in a minute, And so he comes back to bed 20 minutes later. And she said, what's going on? And she said, well, I just had to do a landing, So he'd been flying on autopilot all the way. So he did his landing at Hong Kong. Anyway, so Mum's shaking her head. Okay, that's Dad. And anyway, it went on further. So now he's in the simulator doing long international flights, and she'll bring a meal. So he's got the hostie comes up, and delivers the meal. So he'll eat it on his lap while he's in the simulator and so forth. And I said, anyway, I was at dinner the other day. I said, Dad, what you need is a call button, a hostess call button, you know, and so you can push it when you want. And my mother just looked at me and said, "Oh, look, you are not mine. That is just wrong, you know." So we're going to work out a way to have a ding dong call button. And I said, Dad, you know, you can connect us up on the PA. You know, we all go for a ride. We're in the house, and you can have a PA in the house. I said, ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. The weather at the destination. I said, well, let's all go for the flight, you know. So anyway, I laugh, but it really is a thing in our house. I can tell you, you know, Dad's right into it. So.
I used to fly on VATSIM, and I would, you know, you would have to get online and you would have to tell them what your flight plan was, and you'd have to go through all the radio, you know, processes for the ground control and the air traffic control, et cetera. And I would fly from Seattle to Florida. That was my favorite flight. And my favorite aircraft to fly was a Boeing 730 or 767 by United Airlines. That I found a company that made the simulator. I loved that plane.
You know, it really is.
But before we get on to that, we haven't. We've got our guest here, and we're going to talk to him in a minute. But before we fully get into our guest, let's finish the news just for a couple of minutes. Anyway,
that was a sidetrack. Okay,
so.
Good.
We got 3 stories left, and one of them is definitely Australian related. So CASA is retiring their Can I Fly There drone safety app in the coming weeks. CASA, this app has been absolutely a load of rubbish.
It's rubbish. It doesn't work.
CASA is building a digital platform that will allow industry and other app developers to connect and develop their own software apps. To connect to the platform, app developers need to go through a robust approval and onboarding process, kind of like App Store for Apple getting their apps approved, etc. The existing Can I Fly There app, it was a good in theory, but it hasn't been maintained. And every time it asks you to accept the terms and conditions, you can't do it. It's just useless.
Yeah, that's right. It really hasn't worked. And I think they, you know, bit off a lot more than they can chew. I have always had a problem with these apps because that mindset never seemed to work. We don't use them commercially. You know, you've got to know where you're flying. You use aviation charts, and you know the exact location. Why not? It's not that hard. And figuring it out. I mean, there are more complicated airspace, but you've got to learn to read the airspace. And so what they're going to do now is they're going to release the data. And so third-party companies can do it. What we will see is that being integrated into geofencing, as DJI have had for a long time. That will be clunky as well, depending on who's running it. And all I can say is watch our episode next week of No Limit Drones. That's all I can say.
Actually, before I go there...
Oh, look, there we go. Yes,
Jeff is having fun in the background there.
He's been flying the whole show. I've seen him over there, and they're fanging around in the background. And there's the hat in the background. You can see that too. So
yeah. Okay, we got 2 more stories. Let's get into the next one.
Quick.
Okay, the Australian government has been considering noise issues for drones since March and has now decided to look at the technology on a formal level. Deputy Prime Minister has announced an inquiry into the topic, but it was only a few months ago when the Deputy Prime Minister, the same person, Michael McCormack, was keen to participate in a photo opportunity with Project Wing. During that event, he heard the same noise at close distance. It wasn't a problem then. What's changed? So there's our Deputy Prime Minister, Project Wing's there. The cameras are clicking and going off, and he's going and getting a cup of coffee from a Project Wing drone. Why, if there was no noise problem when he's there right next to the thing, all of a sudden there's an inquiry? I don't know.
Oh, those aircraft were quite noisy. A lot of people complained about them. I mean, there's no need for it to be noisy. You've seen it's got 12 vertical props on it, that thing, and it was high revolution. They just never thought about noise with it. Here we go. Here's your cup of coffee. I mean, really? I mean, really? There we go. That's what it's about, everybody. That's where we're going with that.
Look, I don't dispute that there's noise involved, but I just find that there's hypocrisy if on one hand, look at what we're doing in Australia. We can deliver coffee by drone. And the same person says, but they're too noisy.
Yeah, I know. Just don't even. What can you say? I mean,
Yeah.
that's politics, mate. That's the game of politics rather than anything else. Got nothing to do about noisy aircraft or coffee.
Yeah. Speaking of politics, our last story today, Uber has begun testing a food delivery service using drones in San Diego, United States. The trial involves, let's just pause that video. I had done an edit of this. We'll skip the video, I think. There was an edit of that, but it didn't come up. Never mind. The trial involves order pickup from McDonald's and then delivery to an Uber car close to the delivery location. The Uber driver gets the food and does the final delivery to the customer. But realistically, I'm just looking at this and thinking, McDonald's are going to go and load a Big Mac into a drone. They're going to send it up into the air. It's going to go and find the nearest Uber driver, land on the roof of the car, who's then going to take that Big Mac to your door.
Listen, mate, here's the thing I've got to say right here about all this sort of stuff about this. And I mean, I know there's logistics about last mile delivery, but you know, all the guys that listen to this show are way smarter than all the stuff. You've got to buy into it. Guess what? If I came to you tomorrow with a couple of photos and I said, guess what? Burger King have just got a brand new idea that they're working out with Meals on Wings, and we're going to deliver food all over the continental United States. Here's a blah, blah, blah. And I take a couple of photos and I release a news story. Guess what? Burger King just bought themselves 500 grand's worth of advertising. We'll never see that hamburger. It doesn't matter. We're being conned here. McDonald's and Uber just grabbing, you know, anybody here. We're talking about a brand new technology, something that's going, wow, wow, wow. Here's the thing. The politicians using it to get votes. The McDonald's is using it because, and Uber, they always want to have it. You know, I mean,
but let's talk about
where on the bandwagon. They're on the bandwagon.
Let's talk about the commercials anyway, just for a second, right? So hypothetically, your $5, I don't know the exact price, Big Mac going up, and let's say you're going to pay, I don't know, $3 for delivery, or $5, even if you double the price, $5 for delivery.
There's no hypotheticals. The hamburger's not coming. It never was going to come. It never was going to happen. You know, we fly these things. We know what they'll do and what you can do.
I know. But here's where I want to go on the commercials. The Uber driver who currently does Uber Eats and they pick it up from inside the McDonald's.
Yeah.
Instead, they're going to pick it up 500 meters from your home by a drone dropping it on the roof of the car. So instead of getting paid for the entire journey, he now gets paid for 500 meters.
It's just
so Uber is screwing their own drivers.
It's not going to happen. It was never going to happen. You know, they got their money's worth out of it. They got the news story. You know, and that's where we have to. That's where, as a population of pilots and flyers, we have to cut straight through the rubbish. And we know what you can do anyway. The whole idea of what can we milk out of this? Everyone says, advertisers sit around, mate, every morning and say, what can we make a news story about? What's on everybody's list? What's on, what can we use? And they're absolutely targeting our industry in any way, shape, or they can. They roll up to McDonald's and say, guess what? We've got a venture capital idea, blah, 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 blah. You can have and send us the money. We'll advertise it. I think, I mean, I can't say in the long term what's going to happen. Let me tell you the truth. There's serious ideas about delivering medicals and pharmaceuticals and really important stuff, defibrillators, stuff, things that are going to save people's lives. A hamburger, give me a break. It's just, we're going to see years of serious medical delivery and serious, machines that are doing a proper job. And that's what we want to see, of saving lives and doing that long before we get hamburgers. And
speaking of serious delivery,
here he is.
Look, our guest, Jeff, thank you, Jeff, for being with us, and apologies for that little interlude that happened before. So, For those who don't watch Ken's show, there's a kind of a famous ongoing joke with Jeff. Every minute that he's talking and he's in the middle of reading the news, Ken comes up with some interruption. And, you know, there's these people with FPV drones, Johnny FPV, and there's the bird is the word. And I thought,
no, don't mention that name. Just keep that one silent.
But
That's great.
I thought we'd have an Australian clip that came from at the Avalon Air Show, and where the aircraft was shooting lasers out of the aircraft. You know, usually you hear about the dangers of people shooting lasers at aircraft. Well, we do the reverse in Australia.
I remember seeing that video when it first came out and was just completely fascinated by, you know, I guess the effect. It was just a brilliant show. And I you know, well, I've gone to air shows my entire life, and to see something that, I guess, spectacular, I hope to see that more often at shows. It would be really cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so on to the topic of the day. Why have we got you here? Now, we intended to have a guy called Coldflake, the guy behind No Limit Drones, and he was going to be on here. And Jeff, you were going to be on as well. We were going to have two guests. But unfortunately, Coldflake had to cancel because of the other half. She who must be obeyed said you cannot do the show at this time on this date. So he's going to be here next week, and that's going to be really cool. But let's talk about the title of the show that we put up today, to flash the unflashable drone. And I was kind of doing a bit of a parody on to dream the impossible dream. What were you trying to do and why?
Okay, so we did the exploding drone shot with Ken, where we'd gone out and used the high speed cameras, and we had Jerry Calverley had donated this Phantom 3 that I have part of it. You can see still sitting on the counter over here. And when we went out, Jerry had mentioned to me that he had a Phantom 4 that he was having problems getting the firmware set up on, and I love fixing drones, and I told him I'd be happy to take a crack at it. And so he sent it to me, and he wasn't kidding. The drone will not accept the firmware. You get to 55% and it stops. And I tried everything I could think of to reset the drone, take it back to factory specs, anything I could think of to help him out, and was getting nowhere. It was just really frustrating. And so that's when I turned to Greg and was going to work with him to see if maybe there was some alternate method to be able to zero out the drone. And he introduced me to the No Limit Drones software, the NLD software, and I was fascinated with it.
So very briefly, for people that do want to check it out, if you go to the description for the video, we've got the link in there. Perhaps if one of the moderators could put it up in chat as well. The idea behind No Limit Drones was originally, especially in countries outside of the US, you want to unlock your drone to go fly somewhere that might have a no-fly zone restriction, or if you want to go faster or whatever, you want to do something different. DJI locked down their drones, and that's why it was called No Limit Drones. Now, having said that, the guys behind No Limit Drones, they still don't let you fly over the top of a runway or something stupid like that. They still lock it down to that extent so that you can't do those kind of things unless DJI give you permission to unlock that. But everything else, you should be able to fly your drone as you see fit, and it shouldn't be China going and telling you what you can and can't do. That's where it came from. But more recently, this firmware flashing thing came. And tell me about what happened when you tried to flash it with No Limit Drones compared to with DJI Assistant.
Well, okay, so the DJI Assistant, you would start the firmware update, and it would just have an innocuous statement in the middle of the screen with a bar going across, and it would get to a certain percentage, and it would pause. The drone would turn off and on and off and on and off and on, and then it would just give me an error saying that it was unable to complete the process. And it gave me absolutely no details as to why or anything. So when we got the NLD software and the owner was kind enough to get us a serial number that we could use, it would tell me what part of the process it was going through as it was updating. And so it would tell me that it was updating the controller or the battery or the ESCs or whatever. And when it got to 55%, it told me that it was trying to update the gimbal. And that's where it stopped. And so finally, I was able to see what was causing the problem.
And then we went and had a look at some other log files that you didn't even know about before, potentially. And the next thing you know, we see all of these entries all about the gimbal.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so now we know that the gimbal is actually the possible problem. It's either going to be the controller board or one of the gimbal motors. And so Will, the gentleman that helped me fix Chris Rollins' gimbal here in Houston, he's a DJI service center. We're going to drop the drone off to him tomorrow and let him work on the gimbal for Jerry and see if we can't figure out exactly what's causing the problem.
Really good outcome. Okay, and speaking of good outcomes, there's another one. So No Limit Drones, previously for people who wanted to upgrade their firmware, you needed to pay to get a license. Now, the good news is, as a result of this discussion, had a chat to Coldflake, and he's done an updated version of the software, and it's now totally free of charge for anyone who wants to flash firmware on any DJI drone anywhere. Thank you, Jeff, for being part of that whole kind of storyline where we got there.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're updating your drone and you're having problems or something's not working right, using the NLD software to do the firmware update is very useful because it tells you specifically what steps it's doing as it does it. And that's highly valuable to people. Plus, if you go into their database, you can actually step back your drone 5 or 6 updates versus DJI that usually only lets you go back maybe 1 or 2. So there's a lot of flexibility if you really want to back up the drone and reapply your firmware updates synchronous or sequentially.
Yep.
That will be very beneficial. So I was very happy to hear that he made that portion of the software free because for the drone community, that's a very valuable tool. And also it's going to bring a lot of people into using his software. When you see what else this software can do, you're going to be amazed, and you probably are going to want to buy the software. It really has some cool features in it.
So speaking of the software, next week on the show, we're going to give away a copy of the No Limit Drone software here on the show. So come back next week if you'd like to try and win a copy of that. So where to from here? You're sending it off to this shop, then it comes back and see what happens.
Yeah. So initially, I was going to try to fix the drone for Jerry myself because I've torn Phantom 4s apart so many times now that I've gotten very intimately familiar with them. But that particular model, the Phantom 4, not the Phantom 4 Pro, it was impossible for me to find a controller board for just the gimbal. I needed the power board and the controller board. And I went through eBay, went through Amazon, went through all the different sources that I've used to work on Ken's drones, and there wasn't any. So I talked to Will, and Will said that he had access to a board that we'd be able to test with. And so that being said, I trust Will's work. If there's anybody in Houston that needs work on a drone that's DJI, I'll get Greg the information for this guy's service. He is amazing.
Yeah, check it up on the chat in a couple of moments, and we'll put it up in the screen for anyone that wants to check it out. But while we've got you here, my friend, there's some things that we have to do, and one of those things is, if I can find the right thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time to play Stop the Yank.
Oh, no.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's that fun time that we love to have whenever we've got our US friends around. And today's no exception when we've got Jeff Sills from JS Aerials and the guy who provides all of our news. It's time for Stump the Yank. And I probably should take the title off the screen. I was busy looking at my audio display, and instead of taking the title off, I was thinking, when do I fade that and all of those? Anyway, I've got it off the screen now.
Okay.
So, my friend Jeffrey, Stump the Yank, are you ready?
Oh, no, I'm never ready, but go ahead.
Okay. So, your question today, the question is, what is the word dinky die? And I'll give you 4 options. Option 1, or letter A we'll call it, yes, it's really true. Option 2, it's a pacifier, also known as a dummy in Australia. Number 3, it's a dinky, which means a tricycle for a toddler in Australia, and it was donated to Diana's kids, Harry and William, when they were young. Option 4, a restaurant chain known for their small prawns or shrimps, as you guys would call them, and the owner is called Di.
Okay. Wow.
Oh, they're good. They're good. I'm loving this.
I'm definitely gonna say that the last 2 are out. I'm just not gonna go with those 2, and I'm gonna say B.
Bow, bow. Sorry. It's just something that's true, and someone might use the term a dinky die Aussie as a real Aussie, something that's true. So there you go. So that's our Stump the Yank question for the day. We only had one. Oh, where'd you disappear to?
That's all right. He's still here. I'm in the background having a good laugh, actually. Yeah, you're and you can say a dinky die person. You know, you're a dinky die almost. That's a dinky die hat you got. Yeah, I like that one, Greg. That was well thought out. We got so many of these. Go back
but
to
rather ironically, that was actually thought up, the question today, by an American.
Oh, no.
Oh yeah. You can thank Lloyd Mendenhall for coming up with that today. He didn't come up with the answers, mind you, but he said dinky die, and I thought that would be a good one.
Yeah, I'll have words with Lloyd later.
Yeah. Anyway, Jeff, it's been awesome having you here, and it's always awesome having you around. And, you know, we love to see the fun and games when you're talking on Ken's show. You know, there's some really exciting things out there. Okay, I'll
really
stop
loud.
That. I already turned it down to 50% of what it was when I got the clip, so yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, I mean, thank you for letting me come on the show, and thanks to Jerry Calverley for giving me one heck of a puzzle to work on. That was a lot of fun to work on. So shout out to him, and looking forward to seeing his Phantom 4 up in the air. Just one little point. He's already told me that the minute I get it fixed, he's going to sell it. So if anybody out there wants a Phantom 4, get in touch with Jerry Calverley.
Okay, absolutely. People still like the Phantom 4 series, so absolutely. Let's move on to our next segment. We've had a lot of fun, and stick around if you can. We'll keep you in the background. We'll mute your mic for now, but we maybe have a chat to you again in a moment. So from that, we go to FPV Korner, one of our regular segments where we've got some content being put together by our illustrious former ABC cameraman, Greg Hilton. He does a great job every week, and let's play the clip. So this clip today is from a reasonably new YouTuber, and I think his native language may be Russian, judging by the description that was in the video. But his name is Pavel, and like all of our videos, we've got links in the description for the show today, so you can go to that channel and check it out. I fully encourage you to go there, and in fact, if one of the mods could go there and post it in the chat, that'd be awesome as well. So he's only got a couple of clips and 14 subscribers. He's got a good eye for making clips. please show a fellow Aussie pilot, now that he's in Australia, some support. The original clip was much, much, much longer, and Greg Hilton makes the comment that it's worth a look. What you're seeing here is only half of what he put together, you know, because we can't, the show would go forever if we had all of it in. So again, thanks very much. Up for the giveaway that I mentioned. So this is for the Osmo Pocket handheld video rig kit. So anyone who wants to win, if you've got an Osmo Pocket, there's a video of mine that I produced probably about 4 or 6 weeks ago. Go and have a look for that video, and there's still a bit of time to enter before I do it, and we'll do the giveaway today. Okay, that was an awesome FPV video. Sorry I wasn't interacting much during that, but I've been getting ready for our competition giveaway today. Now, if my producer could do shot A3, see if that works. Yes, it does.
Bye.
John, you've got to go and fly, have you?
Yeah, I'm going to head off, but I'll sign off now, and I'll watch while I get going flying. See ya.
Okay. See you soon, Johnny.
Thanks, Jeff. Great to have you on, mate. See everybody. Catch you next week. Come next week. No Limit Drones. It'll be great.
Yeah. Apologies, John had to leave a little bit early. I'll just clear that for a second. Apologies that John had to leave early. Obviously, he's sitting in an airplane there, and that's an expensive resource to have sitting around. So we'll let John go. Here we go. One more time. Come on. Show it off.
Start her up. Clear prop, everybody. Bye.
See you, John. Okay, he's gone. So let's go and put this up on the screen. So this is a YouTube random comment picker. Now, there was a video. I've put in the URL, and I will get the YouTube comments for that. And let's click the go button. Start. And drone shots. I think you're in the chat room today. I think I saw you there. Drone shots, congratulations, and you're the winner of that particular. Oh, hang on. Why is that not coming up on the screen? That's all live television and the fun and games. Let's see if we can get that to come up. No, like I said, this wasn't totally planned out 100% today, so I did do it on my computer, and drone shots was randomly selected. There's something wrong with that comment picker coming up on the screen, but congratulations, drone shots. So let's move on from that. Now that I've got you back, Jeff, are you there audio-wise?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay. Look, thanks for sticking around. We've got our Explore Australia. It'd be cool to have you sit around as we go through that in a couple of minutes.
Okay.
But just a reminder again, next week, we're giving away the No Limit Drones license. All you have to do is to be here during the show next week. There's no special entries or anything you need to do. Just come back next week. There is one thing. And next week I'll explain it. You need to do a social share of some sort about No Limit Drones. That's all. We'll talk about that next week, though.
All right.
Okay.
I was gonna tell you something. I was watching the FPV footage that you had up there today, and one of the things that I was fascinated with earlier. Of course, I do news crawls all day long, so I'm always finding stuff that's just unique and different. There was a video that I saw where they were comparing, or I guess it was cinematic drones versus FPV drones. And so they had two of the best pilots, that they were able to get, and they took them to the same locations, and they had one guy flying a Phantom, and then they had another guy flying an FPV drone, and they were comparing the differences between, who could get the best shot, right? And so one thing I noticed at the end of it was that after watching both drones do these shots, it dawned on me that if you're going to be a cinematographer and you really want to have great footage about some place that you've gone to, you should really have both in your kit. You should have a cinematic drone for taking those, smooth, slow, careful cinematic shots, and then intermix that with, some high-speed footage or some flyby footage that you have with an FPV to add context to the video. And that was really fascinating to sit there and realize that it's not one or the other. One's not better than the other.
Having said that, the interesting thing is that No Limit Drones, our wonderful piece of software, can unlock some extra things in your existing DJI equipment to let you do different flight modes. I know that the Mavics, I think, have fixed wing mode, I think it's called. Yeah, so that kind of thing is the closest thing that you've got to being able to do that. And I think there's some other unlocks as well. But, come back next week. We'll have a chat to Coldflake and get the confirmation from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, let's go. And it's time for one of our favourite segments every week. And it's time for Explore Australia. So as every week, all of the channels that are featured in our show today, they're all in the description for the video. I encourage you to go check them out. This first one, Skillmaster 3, or Skillmaster with a 3 for the E, whatever. Australian Cinematic 2019 Parrot and Arfie drone is what he's flying, 4K. He's 4K 30 frames per second. That's all he's told us about it, but we know it's in Australia. That's all we know. It'd be really great if people putting some of these things could share lots more information in the description, but very beautiful footage nonetheless.
Yeah, he's got some great locations, and I guess the context of the videos and stuff are really good.
I love that reflection. I love reflection scenes on water. That's just me, one of the things I like.
Yeah, anytime you can get that mirror effect where it captures the clouds, above, or always amazes me. And of course, I love lighthouses. So.
You do love lighthouses. I've seen you watch them a number of times.
Yeah, he's got some great locations. Just some really good shots. And I have to admit,
the sun flare is nice as well.
Yeah, I'm impressed with what the Anafi is able to capture. This is pretty impressive.
It's a beautiful, beautiful drone. The only thing that's missing from it for me is the fact that, if I remember correctly, it's using Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I know that it's a bit simpler, I guess, technology-wise than, say, like a Phantom 4 or something to that effect, and or like OcuSync, for instance, with the Mavics. But yeah, I've seen a couple of things that were shot with the Anafi. Unfortunately, the only other video that I've seen of the Anafi that I thought was really spectacular was the guy who filmed the Airbus plane taking off from that French island.
Yeah,
and that was with an Anafi as well. So,
not so good. One of our regulars, Ferg Taz, some aerial footage of the edge of the world, as he calls it, and the Arthur River in Tasmania. So he had a great day on the river, thanks to his friend Janie and Barry for their excellent boat hire experience. Maybe it's not so much friends, but the people who own the boat hire company. Highly recommended to go down in that area, so peaceful and relaxing. So Tasmania, a beautiful place to go. I've enjoyed my trip to Tasmania many years ago. I should go back. In fact, my parents are going to be going to Tasmania sometime in the near future. They got a Christmas present of a voucher to go on the Spirit of the Tasmania on the boat. So they're going to look forward to that. And no, they're not sitting in the seats. They've got the nice little cabin on the boat. For those who are not Australians, we've got a, I wouldn't call it a ship. It's a ferry, but it's a big, big, big one. Drive your car on and you can go from Melbourne to Tasmania. So, bit of fun there. It's a 12-hour voyage across.
Sounds like it. That'd be pretty amazing.
Yeah, I did it many years ago and then did the circumnavigate the island. It was nice. It's on my list to do again one day. But Ferg Taz, every single time you go to his YouTube channel, and I encourage everyone, go to the YouTube channel of these creators, moderators, if you want to go and share some of the links in the chat room, that'd be awesome as well.
It's just beautiful footage, and he keeps it, nice and level, and you really get the sensation of moving along with the waves. That was really well done.
And as always, if you've got some videos you'd like to share with us that we can include either in Explore Australia or in FPV Korner, send your email to upload@gregkuhnert.com with details, and I'll forward that on to Greg Hilton. Or put it in the Discord. Have a chat in there. Join the Discord now if you want to, and we can have a chat after the show about anything as well.
I had some fun with my wife recently because I found a picture on the internet of a huntsman spider. Apparently these are spiders that are available there in Australia that are...
We have huntsmans, yes.
Yeah, and somebody caught a photograph of this thing eating a possum. I mean, I was like, a possum. Yeah, and I told my wife, I was like, hey, I'm ready to go to Australia. And she's like, oh, heck no.
I saw that photo. I think you shared it again, and it was a pygmy possum of some sort. It wasn't a regular possum.
It was a pretty good sized spider. That was pretty impressive.
Yeah. Anthony Smith, Victoria's coastline by drone, shot with a Typhoon HQ 500 and a Mavic Pro and an Inspire. Now that is a nice little drone fleet there by itself.
Wow. Yeah, and I loved those rock formations. That is just unbelievable.
Various places around the Victorian coastline, and certainly the coast road from Sydney to Victoria to Melbourne. Beautiful, beautiful drive if you're ever up here. It'll take you, do it with a overnight stop off in the middle somewhere at least, if not more, 2 or 3 days.
And he's flying through stuff. That was just really well done. I'm still working on getting the confidence level to fly in certain areas, and some of the things that I see people do with drones, the only thing I see all the crash videos, right? Because I'm always coming across this stuff. It permeates the news streams sometimes because of the gee whiz value of it. And so every time I see one of these videos, I'm like, man, what if I crashed right there? You know?
Yeah. And we got Ferg Taz with 2 videos. This is his second one in this week. Dasher Falls in Tasmania. And the comment is, nice flow at Dasher Falls Gorge today.
Oh my gosh. Please tell me he goes right over the lip. Yeah, that's impressive.
Ferg Taz, I've reached out to him to get him to come onto the show, but if you're listening, Ferg, please get in touch. Love you to come on one day.
Yeah, he's got a great eye. He really does. I'm very impressed. And these are really good lines that he's flying. This is good stuff. Wow, there you go. There's a shot right there. That's the money shot.
Yeah.
So that's the problem where I live, is that it's all farmland, you know, so I can film pastures and cows. I don't have stuff like this that I could go out and like do beautiful cinematography from, because there's nothing like this where I'm at.
Can I share a funny story with you? You just reminded me of something that was, you're a news guy, and I was listening to the news the other day, and we had Australia's Minister for Industry, Technology and the Environment, I think is the official title. And she was talking about, global warming and all of that kind of climate change stuff. And she was talking about some research by the CSIRO, which is the Australian government's research department. And to help combat global warming, they've developed a new food for cows, which is based on seaweed. And apparently when they feed this to the cows, they fart less.
Oh no, the cow farting thing. Oh God. I'm sorry. I remember hearing the stories about cow farts, and it just left me in stitches, because I was thinking to myself, I mean, if cow farts were such a big deal, right? We've had bison and animals that permeated the lands, you know, in huge giant mass, you know, huge herds that would run across the prairies of the United States, and they hunted them to extinction, right? Those animals were farting the whole time, and we didn't have global warming then. So what the heck?
Well, we're going to have less cow farts now as a result. Anyway,
now you want me to go find my fart gun.
Anyway, it's been good having you here today. Thanks for coming in. By the way, thank you again and again and again for all you do in pulling together the news every week. And as a reminder for our viewers, dronebook.org, if you go there, and we've got our Nightbot sending out the link every now and again in the chat room, go to Dronebook. If you have a look at the sites section, that's where the news is. If there's something that you think is a good news story, chuck it in there and it'll come into the feed so that Jeff or I can have a look at it for inclusion either in my show or Ken's show or both.
Yeah, I see articles that are posted by people in the drone community. They post it on Facebook, they post it in Reddit, they post it in all sorts of different locations. And if I see something that I haven't found that didn't come up in my searches, I always grab that stuff. So yes, if you find drone news out there, be sure to share it. We're always interested in what's new, what's better, what's greater, you know.
And when the news gets boring, there's always okay.
We're gonna take that away from you. That's what's gonna happen. Just take that away from you, because you're getting crazy with the airplane thing.
Look, it's an exciting video. I got to see more of it, you know?
Yeah, everybody that if you ever get a chance, go out and do a search on YouTube for laser light show or laser light show from airplane or something. You'll find it. It is an amazing video sequence. I love what they did with that.
Yeah. Okay, so that's all we got time for today. Let me do a couple of quick community service announcements. As always, if you've got videos you would like to have featured on the show, send it to upload@gregkuhnert.com. Please send a link to a YouTube clip or some other video platform. Don't send the actual video. Please help us out by tweeting out our show or sharing it on Facebook or any of those kind of things. And during the show today, let people know, hey, I'm watching Oz by Drone. It'll help other people to come into our show. That's really helpful. Last but not least, if you've got anything you'd like to physically send, our address is 5/127 Princess Highway, Sylvania, New South Wales, 22224 Australia. And certainly I did appreciate the one thing that I got one time. I'm not saying I'm begging for you to send something, but it's just cool. Even if it's a postcard, it's really, really cool. And last but not least, if you want to join us in Discord chat after the show, please feel free to do that. Again, Nightbot's been putting the Discord link up during the show. Once you get in, by default, you'll be in a text chat room, so you can just type things in. But there's a button you can click to also get into the voice chat room. And after the show each week, we have a chat with a couple of people who stick around, and I'll be there and a few of our regulars will be there. Feel free to come in and join us. So with that, if there's nothing else from you, Jeff?
No, nothing else for me. You guys have an awesome time. And for those of you out there that are flying drones, stay safe, fly high and happy, and enjoy yourselves.
Fly high. That can be our new tagline. I like it.
Unless, of course, you live in Colorado. No, unless you live in Colorado, then no, don't fly high.
Okay. Thanks, everyone, for watching. See you next time. Bye for now.
Bye.